I think we've got enough people to start with, so I'm going to welcome you all. Thank you for attending tonight. Phillipa Mitchell is our guest speaker, but we're going to go around the room first and just introduce ourselves. If you can, when I just call your name, if you can unmute yourself, let us know what your name is, where you are in the country, and what it is that you speak about, and whether or not you've written a book of your own. It'll be good to just get an idea of where we stand. So I'm going to start with Ross, who is a friend of Ian's. Ross there. Hi, Ross. Ross Boucher, is it? Can you unmute yourself, or do you want me to help you?
Yeah, you may have to. I figured it. Technologically disadvantaged here.
No
Hi,
problem.
I'm Ross from Plettenberg Bay. That's why we know nothing about technology. And I'm trying to write a book at the moment. I've been trying since the first draft, I think, was back in 2011. And then I see it 2014 again, and I picked it up again.
Okay. Well, some books have a very, very long gestation period, so don't worry. Welcome, Ross. Ian.
Thank you.
Ian and I spent an hour together today on a radio show, and now he's back. So thank you. Welcome.
Thanks, Charlotte. Good to see you again. Long time no see. Yeah, I'm a facilitator and speaker and writer, and I mainly talk about life and leadership, and I also am busy writing my first book, but struggling a little bit. Okay,
Ian, what is your book about?
Oh, it's quite technical. It's about feelings. It's about all the feelings we don't feel, like our bodily, all the things our bodies can feel, and our emotions we don't listen to, and our gut feelings we ignore, and all that kind of stuff.
Sounds very interesting. Great. Thanks, Ian. Chris Vermeulen. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Charlotte. Hi, everyone. I always find it difficult to answer this question, what do I talk about? But let me keep it then to technical report writing is one of my favorite subjects that I teach other people. Yes, I've started writing a book on helping small business people grow their businesses. But the target audience are those emerging entrepreneurs that would benefit from enterprise development in South Africa. So yeah, I don't know whether they'll ever read the book. That's my problem. I'm writing this book, but I don't know whether my target audience will ever read the book because they generally do not read. But okay.
Okay. All right. So we maybe need to talk about your audience. But thank you, Chris. Thanks very much. Max. I don't have your surname, Max. Oh, Max Khan.
Yes. Hi, Charlotte.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm Max Khan. I'm a hypnotist, speaker and trainer. And I speak mainly on corporate wellness by utilizing one's mind that little bit better. And I ideally want to write a book. I've been wanting to write a book for a while. And I am hoping Phillipa, amongst all things tonight, will kick my backside and get me into action. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, Charlotte.
Very good. Thanks, Max. Great to see you again. The next person I have is F3856771.
Hi, it's actually Nancy. Sorry,
Nancy,
my internet connection was really bad. I live in Joburg in Sandton.
Yes.
And I'm actually looking at writing a book about financial advisory, but starting with really small children, even from like the age of 4 or 5, and positioning with the parents. So something a bit different.
Great. All right. Thanks, Nancy. That sounds good. And then we have Jan. There we go.
Hi, I'm Jan. I speak for a living, but of the academic kind. I'm a lecturer.
Good.
I've written numerous things, but not a book yet.
Okay. All right.
I live in Pretoria. I'm not sure if one should admit that. I live in Pretoria.
All right. Great to meet you. Thanks, Jan. And then Chantal. There we go.
We have to unmute ourselves first.
Yes.
So I hope you can all hear me. So I am a coach and facilitator. I have actually written a book which is unpublished, but it is a novel. It is not a non-fiction. I also have published short stories, and I write poetry. So I am here today, though, just to find out more around the non-fiction space, because there's something bubbling under that I'm involved in at the moment that potentially could involve putting a book together as well. So, you know, I've sort of gone to similar type talks before, but it's been a while ago. And so it's really nice to just sort of reconnect and sort of get a couple more of the tips again.
Very good. And
I'm in Joburg.
Joburg, good. It's always good to gather content, even if it's the same topic. When we hear from different people, different things stimulate us. So hopefully you'll get that working for yourself. Great. And then Lance from Cape Town, how are you?
Hey Charlotte, yeah, good to see you again.
Good.
I'm from Cape Town. I'm a tax consultant, and I'm an author of a book titled The Driver of Change. I self-published the book in December 2014, and I have been presenting at many schools and corporates about my book and about my creating opportunities philosophy. So the book has been going well, and for the last few months I have started on my second book. I've just completed the manuscript. It's on the side of my bed, hoping for my wife to read it first, because she'll give you the honest opinion. But hopefully I'll get that out soon, and my second book out over the next few months as well.
Very good. And folks, if any of you want to know how to market your book, you just have to watch Lance on Facebook and on his social media. He does an excellent job of positioning himself in his book. It's really very impressive and inspiring. Well done. Thank you. And then Jenny, how are you, Jenny? Can you tell us about your book, please?
Thanks.
Cheers, Lance. Jenny? Jenny's a little frozen there. Or am I frozen? Hi, Jenny.
Hi, sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Hi, Charlotte and everyone. I'm an author and a speaker. I've written 2 books. I'm from Cape Town. And Lance, I'm sure we've met somewhere along the way. I'm from Cape Town. I've written 2 books. My first one is The Obedient Universe, which is about how we create our reality. And I've sold quite a lot of that. And my talks are around that. So it's about, you would probably classify the genre as mind, body, spirit. And then I've written a second book called How We Can Change the World. I know it's a modest title, but it's about looking at the ways in which our powerful minds create our reality. And I'm also an emotional freedom technique, or tapping, if any of you have heard of that, tapping practitioner, which I use a lot in my work, but I speak a lot too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much. And then we'll move on to Taryn Lee, who is in Pretoria.
Taryn. Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me? Great, because I don't know if it was frozen or something. So guys, I'm Taryn from Pretoria. I'm a trainer, speaker, as well as a visibility coach. And I haven't written a book yet because I don't seem to have the structure or, like Jacques said, the capacity to keep my bum on a chair. So I'm looking forward to tonight's session.
Very good. Thanks, Tara. And then Bruce Page from Durban. How are you, Bruce?
Evening, Charlotte. Evening, everybody else. My name is Bruce Page, and as you can see from the title there, I'm an ecologist by profession. I speak on environmental issues, mainly climate change, but also on extinction issues. I've written a few book chapters and a whole lot of journal articles, and currently writing a textbook. But the thing that gets me really excited is I'm about to start blogging. So I'm interested in how that fits into how to write. Once a week blog.
Very good.
That'll do, Charlotte.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for sharing. Koos Bierman, how are you? Can you unmute yourself? I'm not sure if Chris is there because I can't see a video. There we go.
Hi, can you hear me, Charlotte?
Yes, Chris, how are you?
Sorry about that. Hi, guys. Sorry, my video is not turned on. I'm visually impaired. I'm clinically classified as being blind, although I can still make up some shapes and sizes. I'm based in Bloemfontein. I'm trained as a physiotherapist, but I do radio presenting work. I also do training as public speaking and presenter coach. And then my passion in life is golf, believe it or not. It's not difficult enough to see the ball. Try and do it without seeing. And I want to write a book. I've actually tried for the last 10 months to write a book and use golf as a parable for the principles of success, and how the principles of success is universal. So hopefully we can get there and then get the book written.
Great. Sounds like a very interesting book. I look forward to that. Greg Davies, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm amongst the group that have not written a book yet, but I work in the publishing industry in a couple of different roles: audiobook narration and book jacket design. So I've got a keen interest in this, and I know there's some loopholes or little areas in my knowledge that need filling, so hopefully Philip is going to fill them in tonight.
Great. And that jacket design is very, very important, so that's a really great technique and skill. Welcome, Greg. Thank you. All right, and then Dawn Klotso. Dawn?
Hi, Charlotte. Can you hear me?
Yes, good.
Hi, everyone. My camera's misbehaving this evening, so I have no idea why. I'm an executive and business coach, and I published my first business book, The Art of the Suit, which came out in January of this year. And the one thing that I did realize coming out of that is that there's a lot more I have to learn about writing. So that's why I'm sitting here. So you may see me at some stage. I'm still messing around with my keyboard to try and sort out my computer. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Dawn. And we heard Dawn speak at the PSASA midterm convention this last weekend. She had a really interesting presentation about kind of really getting down to the value that we bring. Really great content. All right, folks, we're going to now introduce Philippa, and she's going to take it away. As always, I'm here by the coast in Cape Town, just shy of Simonstown in an area called Glencairn Heights. And our weather seems to be fine, but every now and then our internet plays up. So if you lose me, you guys carry on, you'll be fine. Somebody else who's a speaker can just take over and host. We all kind of can handle this. But Philippa is going to talk for a while, and then she'll share. Just so you know, I have also written a few books. The first one is called I'm Not Afraid of the F Word, which was my kind of journey into and through and out the other side of failure. And it was a very personal, very emotional book. And I don't know who else has experienced this, but when you pour yourself out into the first book, it's really hard to kind of approach the next one because it doesn't come quite as easily. So my next one was a collaboration with Richard Mulvey and Roger Knowles, and that is a book about writing books and marketing and publishing books, which is a really great resource for people. But that came from our three very, very different experiences. And I'm writing another book at the moment, but trying a very different approach. So I'll be sure to let you all know how that goes when it comes out. But on to Philippa. Philippa and I have been Facebook friends and LinkedIn connections forever, and just the other day was the first time we actually heard each other's voices on the phone, and that's the nature of modern communication and relationships. So I know so much about Philippa from what she shared on Facebook, and I've been really interested in her kind of journey and everything you shared, Philippa, about the book that you've written, 4 o'clock in the morning, which I have to confess I haven't read yet, but I'm dying to get my hands on it, and I know I should have read it before today. But Philippa has a lot of experience in publishing and ghostwriting and from different aspects of this journey. So I'm going to just hand it over to Philippa Phillipa, go ahead and share whatever you can. It'll be of immense value to us. And folks, if you have any questions, just pop them into the chat box, and we can address them later on. I'm going to just mute myself so that I can give Phillipa the floor. Thank you, Phillipa, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to everybody. Lance, I was watching you before this all started, and it looks like you had a really nice dinner. It's quite cool being able to see everyone on the screen like this. But yeah, thanks for having me on board tonight, and I hope that everyone's had a good day, and that if there were no highlights in your day today, I hope that tonight's webinar, if you want to call it that, is going to be it. So listening to a couple of your intros, there's some people who are already published, some people who are writing, and some people who want to write a book. My main focus tonight is going to be on how to become an internationally published author and actually getting yourself published. So from my side, I have written one book, which was 4 in the morning, and it was based on true events that happened in my life. I wrote the book as a novel in order to protect identities, but it led me on a very interesting path where I ended up actually becoming a ghostwriter. So I write books for other people now, as well as an editor. And a lot of my journey since writing my book as an indie author in 2015, I've just picked up so much learning and information, and I just want to share some of what I have learned tonight. I wish I had 3 hours to get through everything. I had actually so much content and ended up having to reduce some of it. But I have actually published pretty much everything I'm going to be that I'm sharing with you tonight, but a lot more detail is actually on my website at phillipamitchell.com. So you don't have to take notes tonight. Literally everything is there. So basically, in 2015, I started out as an indie author, and it was pretty much like a taxi ride down Louis Vuitton Avenue. So I've had a few flat tires, my shocks have been destroyed on more than one occasion, and I've run out of fuel on a few occasions as well, but onwards and upwards. If you've never written and published a book before, it may appear daunting. It certainly was for me, but when you actually get down and do it, it really isn't as scary as you're expecting it to be. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to hold your hand, and I'm going to guide you through the process. And at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about ghostwriting, because not everybody is a natural writer, just as not everybody is a natural speaker. I also want to mention in the beginning that there is a fantastic blog and also what do you call it, a podcast that is done by a lady called Joanna Penn. And if you listen to podcasts, go onto her website. It's the Creative Pen with 2Ns.com. And I've been following her podcast for a while now, reading her blog. She gives the most fantastic advice to authors, from writer's block to actually getting published to marketing and all sorts of things. So, if you don't hear what you need to hear tonight in what I'm delivering to you, at least you can go there and check that out. So it's the Creative Pen with 2Ns.com. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the different types of publishing. And the first type of, the first question is going to be mainstream or not. Okay, so one of the questions that I often hear writers ask is, I've written the most incredible book, and of course everyone's book is incredible, but how do I get it published with a mainstream publisher? So my question is, what is it that makes so many people believe that the only way to be truly recognized as a successful author is to be signed up with a mainstream publisher? There obviously is a large amount of glamour attached to being published with a mainstream publisher, and if anybody's actually taking the time to ask and notice, I'll be honest with you, nobody really cares who published your book. When you've got that book in your hand, all that matters is that you have that printed, published book with your name on the front, and you've got pages and pages of well-written, beautifully constructed content in between. So In terms of getting published with a mainstream publisher, and I'm talking, your Penguins, your Random Houses, your HarperCollins, the big guys, and that's locally and internationally. One of the key ingredients to successfully signing a publishing deal with a mainstream publisher is by approaching them with your manuscript when you already have a large base of followers and fans. And a lot of people don't know this. But think about how easy it is for a celebrity to get their book published, whether it's any good or not. They've got this base of fans. So it's a little trickier to be signed by a mainstream publisher when you're a first-time author and you're not the Pied Piper of Hamelin in terms of your following. Well, not yet anyway. So if you think about mainstream publishers, they're all in the business of making money. So if you've got a book and your content is deemed unique and valuable and you have a large following, then they know they pretty much guaranteed the sales because everyone in your network is going to be talking about your book, aren't they? So I've placed quite a bit of information up on my website at phillipamitchell.com about how you can build and grow a following in a very short space of time. So please go check it out. There was somebody who mentioned earlier about blogging. It's the perfect place to start. Even if you're not using your blog content to write your book, it's the perfect place to start in terms of generating a following and a fan base. So in terms of physically approaching a mainstream publisher, so you've got this large following, you have this great book, and technically you're ready to approach a mainstream publisher. So how do you do it? So as a first-time writer, getting published through a mainstream publisher, it can take years and years of perseverance before your book is accepted for publication, and this can be quite disconcerting. Ask anybody who's tried to get their book published before. But think about it like this. So everyone knows J.K. Rowling. Her first Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 different mainstream publishers before Bloomsbury sat down to read it. And as you all know, the rest is history. So if you're planning on going the mainstream route and you have the patience and the following to accompany it, you'll need to make sure that you have a certain amount of information ready before you make your submission. So what is that information? The traditional publishing houses will ask you to submit what they call a book proposal to them. And your manuscript forms part of that proposal. And so your manuscript essentially is your book typed up in Word or whatever format it is that you've typed it up in from beginning to end. It includes your jacket, your copyright page, your table of contents if you have one, and then everything else that goes into the book until you get to, the end, at the end. If you want to publish internationally and you want to submit your book to a large mainstream publisher in the UK or the USA, you actually can't submit your book to the publisher directly. Overseas, you are required to employ the services of a literary agent. But in South Africa, fortunately, if you want to publish locally, you have the option of either doing it yourself or you can make use of a literary agent. Now, what you'll find, and I'm going to refer specifically to South African publishers here, is that most of the South African mainstream publishers and your international ones, they'll have specific window periods that they'll open up during the year for manuscript submissions. Now, this can be for a short period, like a week, or sometimes twice a year. But my advice is go at the beginning of a year or any time during the year, go onto the publishers' websites. And I'm thinking, or talking specifically about publishers that you want to publish with. Go and have a look at the other types of books that they're publishing, make sure that they're in line with what you are publishing, and then go and determine when their window periods are, because on their submissions page, they will clearly indicate this. Then once you've got these dates, diarize them in Outlook or, whatever program, or, in your diary, wherever you're most likely to remember to take action. What the publishers will do on their website is they will have what they call submission guidelines, and it varies from one publisher to another. So just as an example, some publishers will require that you submit your full manuscript. I've had experiences with others where they will ask for a synopsis with your manuscript and your full manuscript. And then others might only want a synopsis and the first 3 chapters of your book. That one is quite common. So it's useful to prepare this ahead of time. So have a full manuscript saved as a PDF and as in a Word document. Have another version where you've got the synopsis with your full manuscript, and another version where you've got your synopsis with your first 3 chapters of your book. So yeah, put all of this information, all these submission guidelines in your calendar reminder or in your diary, and put a link to the submissions page so that you don't have to go hunting for it months later. I've found this quite useful, especially with clients that I ghostwrite for. In terms of how you submit your manuscript, most publishers will accept electronic copies of your manuscript. But there are a couple in South Africa that still want a printed hard copy sent to them, but they really are in the minority. So besides your manuscript, you need to ensure that you attach as much supporting evidence about you and your book as possible. You know, think about this as an opportunity to sell yourself, and you know, it's like dating. You know, you've got one opportunity to do it, so make sure you do it well. What it will also do is if you give a large amount of good supporting evidence, it'll give you some serious credibility, and it's what you need to be noticed by a prospective publisher. So, what do you need in terms of supporting evidence? First of all, a synopsis. Until I had to submit a synopsis to a publisher, I had no idea what on earth a synopsis was. Basically, what a synopsis is, it's a rundown of what your book is about, chapter by chapter. So if you haven't ever written a synopsis before, you literally go through your book and sum up each chapter in a few lines and go from chapter 1 to the end. It's not your blurb. You really must only state the facts. And why I'm saying it's not your blurb is because the publisher's not interested in suspense or guessing. Your blurb is for your reader, and that'll be on the back of your book. The publisher's looking at your book as a product that they can make money out of. And, you know, if they like your concept, there's a good chance that they will contact you for more information, and hopefully you get a publishing deal with them. So, you know, when you're writing your synopsis, don't rush it. Take your time writing it. Get someone else to check it. You know, if your synopsis has got grammatical errors or spelling or punctuation errors, it's not going to bode well for the rest of your book. In terms of the length of your synopsis, it shouldn't be longer than 2 typed pages. So when you're summing up your chapters, make it short and concise so it's easy to read and flows right through to the end. Then the next bit of supporting evidence that you should have is your cover letter. So introduce yourself, write a short biography about yourself, include any notable career highlights, and anything that you think might attract a publisher's attention. Also take some time while you're writing to explain why you wrote your book and why you feel that it would be suited to that particular publisher's audience. And if you have got a professional photograph of yourself, no selfies, then include that in your cover letter as well. I would also suggest, this was some nice advice I was given once, is to include a couple of lines saying that you're willing and able to attend book launches across the country and even internationally if required, that you're prepared to attend media interviews. And, you know, if you've worked in the media before and you're familiar and you're comfortable in front of a camera or a journalist, mention this. And include anything that you think that the publisher might deem necessary in terms of giving your book as much exposure as possible. Personally, I think it must be a publisher's worst nightmare if they sign a new author and discover that they're actually unavailable to attend media events and sign books for their fans or to be interviewed about their book. So in terms of the submissions process, you will generally submit your book proposal through the publisher's websites or by email, okay? It'll be one or the other. Your manuscript must be submitted either in Microsoft Word or PDF format. So just make sure you've got it available in both formats. They will be very specific, or they'll say they'll take it in both. So once you've submitted, you pretty much sit back and wait and pray for a couple of months while they decide if they like your book or not. and they'll generally email you a thumbs down, and will probably call you or email you if it's a thumbs up. So that's the process that you'll go through if you are submitting your book to a mainstream publisher. But then there's self-publishing and independent publishing, and that's when you just can't wait, because when you submit your book to a mainstream publisher, you're generally looking at, it could be months or like a year and a half before you even see your book in print, if the publisher actually accepts it. So today's authors aren't limited to mainstream publishing anymore in order to get their book out there. There's a huge amount of technology available at our fingertips, and pretty much anyone who's written a book can get published. So writers can get published through a self-publishing house, or if they're extremely brave, and I'm sure that everyone here tonight is extremely brave, you can experiment with independent publishing through companies like Amazon.com and CreateSpace. So everybody has a choice in terms of where they begin, and whether you want to become a best-selling author or you just want to use your book as a business card, which many people do, and it's a credible business card. It really doesn't matter where you begin. The most important thing is you just take that first step and remove the ego as much as possible from the equation. Just out of interest sake, there are many famous authors who started out as indie authors. Stephen King and E.L. James of 50 Shades of Grey fame. So I just want to talk a little bit about self-publishing versus independent publishing and what the difference is between the two of you. Obviously, people that are attending this webinar tonight who have done the actual publishing process will know the difference, but for everyone else, this should be interesting information. So in terms of self-publishing, companies that offer self-publishing services, and there are quite a few in South Africa, including companies like Reach Publishers, Quick Fox, Porcupine Press. What they do is they offer different publishing packages. And you're looking at anything upwards of 15,000 Rand for your publishing packages, and it depends on what you want. Now, that package will include all sorts of things like editing, proofreading, formatting, your jacket design, an ISBN, printing, ebook production, marketing, distribution into the book trade. And then they'll also usually list your book on various online and electronic distribution platforms. And then as part of your package, you'll usually get about 5 copies of your printing book, for yourself. And if you want any more, then you just have to pay for them. When you'll receive a percentage of your book sales in the form of royalties. And this varies from one publisher to another. With a self-publishing house, you can expect your royalty payment to be in the region of about 10% of the retail price of every book sold. So if you're selling your book for 200 Rand, you're going to get 20 Rand back in the form of royalties. So, if you're selling a lot of books, it can be quite lucrative, but otherwise don't give up your day job. I don't know many authors who actually are able to write full-time, but it's definitely a dream of mine. Something I want to point out about self-publishing houses is they are not the greatest marketers. I've worked in the book industry since the year dot, and that's one thing about self-publishing houses that I've noticed is that basically what they'll make sure happens is that your book gets into bookstores once it's published, but after that, that's pretty much it, and most of the marketing work is left to the author. In terms of marketing, the only place you're really going to have some guaranteed marketing is when you go through a proper mainstream publishing house. But with self-publishing and indie publishing, most of your marketing is left up to you. If you're a novice and you don't want to invest the time or take the risk, if you want to call it that, of going the independent publishing route, and you just want to get your book out into the system as painlessly as possible, then go the self-publishing route. But if you're more adventurous and you'd like to receive a greater share of the profits and have more control over what happens to your book, then I will invite you to step up onto the stage of indie publishing, which is which is where my expertise is, and it's a very exciting place to be playing at the moment. It's a growing trend both worldwide and in South Africa. And the best part of being an indie author is that you have full control over your book, from production right through to printing and distribution. So unlike with the self-publishing houses, with indie publishing, you get to choose who edits your book. You get to choose your jacket designer. You get to choose if you want a glossy cover or a matte cover, or you want cream or white paper inside, and how thick you want that paper to be. You get to choose what goes on the copyright page of your book. You get to choose your price, the size, the format, what distribution channels. What I love about indie publishing is you can make changes to the content of your book within minutes at no cost to yourself. So, you can add chapters, you can take stuff out. It's not going to cost you anything. Whereas if you're publishing with a self-publishing house, there's a cost because then you need to pay someone else to do it. So if you're actually planning on making money out of your book, you will receive higher royalties of about 20% of the selling price of your print book. So that's your print book. But if you publish your book as an ebook, then you're looking at 70% of the profits are yours. Compared to the 5 to 10% that you're going to receive through your mainstream publishing and self-publishing channels.
Phillipa?
Yeah.
Sorry, if we can just interrupt. Your camera's gone off. And
has it?
Yes, I don't know why.
It has, you're right. How do I get it back on?
At the bottom left, it should be
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Sorry, everybody. I hope everybody's enjoying so far and getting some valuable information out of this. I'm looking at notes at the same time, so I'm just sort of moving between screens here at the moment. Okay, so I want to just move on to how do you become an indie author? It may sound daunting, and you might find yourself trembling slightly at the thought of where to begin. And yeah, it's a huge thing. I mean, you're going to be taking on all the roles of a traditional publishing house, and it is hard work. But if you speak to any indie author out there, they'll tell you how rewarding it is. There are many companies internationally that you can use to create and print your book. But the big ones are CreateSpace. I will be discussing them in more detail shortly. There's also Ingram Spark and Smashwords. Okay, they're all based in the UK. Their services are all online, and they're all highly geared for the independent publishing market. So I'll talk a little bit about CreateSpace. They do wonderful work in the indie publishing environment. I actually published my book through them. I've published books for clients through CreateSpace as well. It really is a seamless process, and it's a great way to get your book to market quickly. So basically what you do is you upload your manuscripts and your book jackets into one of their templates. You complete the book's bibliographic information, you set the price, and voila, you have a book that can be published literally at the click of a button. The publishing process itself does not cost you a cent. And once you have approved everything and you hit the publish button, your book will be available on all Amazon stores within about 24 hours. And then through the CreateSpace expanded distribution channels worldwide within a matter of days. I will go into detail on the actual publishing process a little bit later. And I do have step-by-step instructions on my website if you want to publish through CreateSpace. I've actually taken it from my own personal experience, and it really is dead simple. I want to talk a little bit about publishing your book as an ebook. So I believe that every published author should make sure that they have both an ebook version of their book and a print version. But if you've written a book and you want to get it out to market as quickly as possible while you wait for your printed copies to arrive, or while you raise money to cover the costs of printing a book, you might want to consider publishing an ebook version of your book. And there's two main ways of doing that in terms of reaching an international market. And by international, obviously, that means clients in South Africa as well. So the first way is publishing your book as a Kindle ebook. So Amazon is the largest online e-tailer of ebooks, and they're followed by other platforms like the Apple iStore, Barnes & Noble, and many others. But because size does matter, my suggestion would be to start by publishing your book as an ebook on Amazon first. And how do you do that? You can either upload your manuscript directly onto their website, into the Kindle publishing platform. It's also referred to as Kindle Direct Publishing, or KDP. You know, when you're an indie author, you're always talking about KDP. So either you're going to upload it into their website, or you can use their Kindle Create app. So the Kindle Create app is brilliant. You just, it's a quick download to your computer, and then what you do is you upload your manuscript into it from Word, and it formats your manuscript so that it can be read on any electronic reading device. And then you can actually upload that file into the Kindle Create website and use that. So once you've published your book as an ebook on the Amazon Kindle platform, then you can consider expanding your reach to other online bookstores. And how would you do that? That is through the Draft to Digital platform. Okay. Now, that is the Draft to Digital platform. They're sort of like an aggregator. They have a lot of vendors that they work with, and as I mentioned before, like the Apple iStore and Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and so on. So it's pretty similar to setting your account up with Amazon and publishing your book on Amazon. The only major difference is you get to choose which vendors you want to sell with. You might decide you only want your book on the Apple iStore. And you also get to choose from a wider range of ebook formats. Like they've got these cool decals that you can put at the beginning of each chapter, and different heading and font styles, which Kindle Creates, that little app, also does, but it's not as fancy. It's a sort of more cut and dry. So in summary, you have three ways of getting your book out into the local and international market as an indie author. So you can publish your book in paperback through CreateSpace, and that will give you international reach across all of the major online and bricks and mortar bookstores, and that includes South African bookstores. Secondly, you can publish a digital version of your book as an ebook through Kindle Direct Publishing, and again, your book will be instantly available across Amazon stores worldwide. I mean, it really literally is within a matter of hours of hitting the publish button. And finally, then you can publish your book on the Draft to Digital platform. That's an aggregator platform, and have your book, your ebook, available on all the other online digital platforms that are not related to Amazon, such as the iBookstore. So before you take the plunge and you start uploading your manuscript to all of these platforms, I just have a few publishing secrets that I'd like to share with you. And I believe that if you follow these guidelines, you will already be halfway there in terms of successfully publishing your book. And that doesn't matter whether it's a paperback or an ebook. So first thing is your book's title. So choose the title of your book carefully. It must be a title that people will be able to remember so that they can look for it later. So, you bump into somebody and you tell them, I've written a book, and they say, what's the title? And you give them the title, and they get home and they can't remember the book, and you've lost a sale. So, what I would avoid doing is using words that are difficult to spell or to pronounce, unless, of course, you're publishing a technical work of nonfiction where you have to use those words. Ideally, the title of your book should match the contents of your book. I'm really glad that there's so many people here that are looking at nonfiction, because that's like the area that I particularly love. So, so when your title is matching the contents of your book, imagine you searching Amazon for books on, designing vegetable gardens. And if your book's title is Designing Your First Vegetable Garden, somebody who's searching for designing vegetable gardens probably going to see your book come up in the first couple of hits, which is good for you, because you're more likely to get a sale than if you sort of on page 5 of results because your book is not called Designing Your First Vegetable Garden. The second most important thing that I want to emphasize is, and I can't emphasize this enough, and that's if your book hasn't been edited or proofread, just don't publish it. Hire a professional editor and a proofreader to go through your book with a fine-tooth comb, because there's really nothing worse, especially when you're printing a book, where you've printed hundreds of copies of a book and then you find these glaring grammatical or spelling or punctuation errors. And I've got the t-shirt, I've been through that. It's not worth it. Rather spend the time and the money hiring a professional editor to go through your book and then to proofread it right at the end. Another really important thing is hire a professional book jacket designer. Unless you're a graphic designer, don't try and do your book jacket yourself. Again, something I did, made the mistakes. Eventually, I ended up paying to have my jacket designed, and I have never looked back. So if you're publishing through CreateSpace, they do have an option there where they can create a jacket for your book at a cost. You're looking at about $399. Otherwise, they're going to ask you to upload your own professionally designed book jacket. So, yeah, professionally designed. Your book your book jacket is what sells your book. So really don't skimp on this part of the publishing process. Too many authors do. And then they wonder why their books don't sell, especially in bricks and mortar bookstores. And simple things like the spine of the book, if it's too small or it's not, the type is not clear, or, just if the book looks uninteresting on the outside, you've already lost the chance of selling that book to somebody, unless, of course, you're really famous and people don't care what's on the book jacket. If you're going to use a professional book jacket designer, I would definitely ask the designer for samples of their work before you hand over any of your cold, hard cash. There's a lot of people out there professing to be book jacket designers, but you want to see their catalog. You want to see what else they've done before. There's quite a lot of sites online where you can buy like what I call budget pre-designed template jackets for upwards of about $100. But personally, I wouldn't recommend going this route unless you've written a novel, maybe, because you're very limited in terms of your image choices and your layout. You can buy pre-made jackets in South Africa for about 350 Rand upwards. But again, just bear in mind, they're not original designs created specific to your work. So, if you're writing romance novels and you're pushing, to like a book out every second month, then, it is an option. But not if you're going to have like a flagship title or, a couple of books under your belt over a period of years. There's a woman called, have I lost camera again?
No, you're fine. But we move to questions soon. So tell us your story and then we must do some questions.
Yeah, I've got a little, I wish there was more time, but
we all.
It's crazy. What's the time? Oh, it's 10:02. Okay, so all right, so look, all this information is on my website, so you can go and check this out later. But to hire a professional book jacket designer in South Africa, you're looking at about anything from 1,500 Rand upwards. I've been working with Greg Davies, who's actually on tonight's webinar. He designs pretty much all my jackets for me, so I'll punt him. Then your blurb for your book jacket. Don't rush this process. It's also one of the last things that most authors think about, but like the jackets, it could also be a deal breaker in terms of whether a potential reader buys your book or not. Another thing is, make sure your book is correctly formatted. What I love about CreateSpace is, they've got these free templates, all in Word. You can download them and you can literally copy and paste your manuscripts into these templates chapter by chapter, and the formatting happens by itself. Wow, Charlotte, there's so much information that I want to cover. I'm like just sweating looking at all of this. I'm like, I'm never going to get.
No, you know what? That was very interesting. I've made tons of notes here, and it's really insightful. So I'm going to urge everybody, if you've got, questions, go along to Philippa's site and have a look, and, maybe you can engage her to help directly. But let's just see if there's any questions on what Philippa shared with us. You can just physically raise your hand, or if you want to just unmute yourself if you're not on camera and speak up. But are there any specific? Jenny's got a question. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, thanks, Charlotte. And Philippa, that was really fascinating. I did self-publish, and I went through all the processes that you talk about. I'm just going to give you all my questions, and or maybe I should wait for the answers. The first thing I wanted to ask you, is there a particular number of pages that publishers, or even if you self-published, but that publishers prefer for a book, either non-fiction or fiction? Is there a desired number of pages?
Look, Jenny, I wouldn't know from a publishing perspective, but I definitely say from a bookseller's perspective, anything upwards of 180 pages. 180 to say 220 is normally a nice size book. It also depends on, there's a lot of people who want their book to be something that you can read on a flight, and then they're going to drop the number of pages if they want their book to be read by those kind of readers. But I'd say 220 pages is really it looks nice, it feels nice.
Yes.
Sort of textbooky type books. I've just published a book for a client recently dealing with legal trusts, and her book was 300 pages. And it's a nice, chunky book full of information, So I think it really does depend on what the amount of information that your book contains, but there's no limit in terms of what a publisher wants. It's more about into the reader.
Okay, now I thought that there would be a kind of, not less than certainly for a publisher rather than self-publishing.
Not less than 180 pages, definitely.
Not less than?
180 pages.
Okay. Yeah. So, more than is fine, but not less than. Okay. Then the other thing I wanted to ask you is, would you, when you print, because my first print run was 1,000, and I did it because to reduce the unit cost.
Yes.
And happily I sold them. But would you choose litho or digital?
Personally, I can't actually give you the answer to that, because I've only ever done short print runs. I prefer print on demand. I think if you're going to be attending a conference or something where you're going to be selling your book, then do a large print run, because it is going to work out cheaper on a unit cost. But you're probably one of the few authors that I know that have actually sold all their copies. A lot of people end up having tons of books in their garage, And if you want to make changes to your book, then you've got all that stock. So print on demand is a great option, especially if you're selling to your international market and you're using CreateSpace, because how CreateSpace works is literally as a customer orders your book, CreateSpace prints the book for you.
Yeah.
So,
I've got my book on Kindle, but I haven't done CreateSpace because it seemed like such a technological challenge. But I'm going to go onto your website and see how to do it. So thank you for that. And then my third,
it's a super easy process to publish on CreateSpace, really. Anybody can do it. If you can switch it off, you should be able to do it.
Okay. And then, which for me was the biggest challenge, was marketing. If you, whether you have a publisher or not, or rather, if you do have a publisher, do they expect you to come with a fan base and to come kind of doing your own marketing?
Yeah, pretty much. Mainstream publishers are only focused on their frontlist titles, and frontlist means books that have just been published. After your book's been published, within a couple of months, it's moved off the radar, and they leave it alone. They do expect you to do legwork, and it is a bit more difficult when you're working with your own. If you're self-publishing or you're an independent publisher, but a lot of it's got to do with, have you got a website? Have you got a blog? Are you communicating with your readers? Are you giving them valuable content? Are you giving them short bursts of information once a week or every day or whatever? People must be constantly reminded of your book. So it's very much to the author ultimately to the marketing. Yeah.
Okay, and just one last thing, you know, I did have a distributor when I first published, but I got 40% actually, because I'd done everything myself. I got 40% of the retail cost. Whereas when I stopped using the distributor, I get 100% as in revenue. Obviously, there's production costs to go off that.
Yes.
And so I take it with me when I do a talk, when I do a workshop. I keep a box full of books in my boot.
Every author should.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to a dinner party and be talking, and someone says, "But where can I get your book?" I say, "Right here, right now. I will get one from my boot." So I do that, but yeah, I think marketing for me has been the biggest challenge. But thank you very much for all of that.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I just want to mention a little bit about book distribution, because I've had some horrendous shocks myself. When it comes to writing a book, the only person who's really making money out of your book, especially if you're using a distributor, is the bookseller. You know, because when you're selling your book into exclusive books, they're looking for at least 45%. Okay. Your distributor is going to want sort of about 24 to 26% of the retail price of your book as their distribution cost. So that's to cover packaging and delivery and everything. You know, and when you start doing the maths and you work out what's left for you, you know, after you've covered printing and everything, you know, sometimes you're just breaking even. So if you're an indie author starting out, and I've mentioned this on my website, and you are printing your own books locally, use the independent bookshops in South Africa.
I've used a few independent ones. And I also use loot.coza.
Okay.
I just find their search function is not very effective. But I realized the other day that Take-A-Lot has a much better search function, and they carry books, which I didn't realize. So I'm about to take my books to Take-A-Lot.
Oh, fantastic. Speaking of that, if you publish on CreateSpace, your book is instantly available across all the online bookstores.
Yes.
So actually, as soon as you've published, within like about 2 or 3 weeks, you'll actually search Loot, or you'll search Take-A-Lot, any of the online bookstores, and your book will come up, and you'll be like, how did it get there? And it's actually coming from the CreateSpace feed.
Okay, thank you. I've taken up too much of your time. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for indulging me.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, any questions for anyone else? Not? I just was thinking of something, Phillipa, when you were talking about CreateSpace. As speakers, you know, if we travel around, especially if we're traveling out of town and even internationally, if we knew that we were going to speak at a particular venue, I imagine that it would be relatively easy for us to go to CreateSpace, order 10, 20, 50 copies of our own book and have it delivered to the venue where we're going to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We wouldn't have to ship it with us and pay for travel, you know, the expense of moving it, and actually have it available there.
That's a fantastic idea. We need more of that in South Africa, actually, because there's international authors that come and speak in South Africa, and they've also got to lug their books here.
Yes.
You know, but you can do short print runs in South Africa, or internationally, if you know where the printer is. You know, just give them your manuscript and print it for you.
Yeah, we do a lot of short print runs. Richard printed many copies of his very first book, and we learned from that. So we do lots of short, frequent print runs. Chris, I think you had a question, and welcome to. We didn't see you right at the beginning there. Just unmute yourself. Bottom left, Chris, to unmute yourself. Actually, I'll unmute you. Hold on.
I think you muted me.
Okay, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
If it's just to ask a question about title and subtitle in a sort of a non-fiction self-help kind of book, does it carry a bit of extra weight to have a sort of a subtitle which kind of explains your title, but in a very short little, kind of a little punchy statement that supports the title? Is that a good thing to do?
I think it's a great thing to do. I've noticed on Amazon in particular, some people use a subtitle like, whatever the title is, and then they go, the best-selling book by, on this subject or whatever, and that's not on. But if your subtitle, so you can have a very short title and have a long subtitle, which is very relevant to your book. Absolutely. Subtitles are fantastic. So definitely have a subtitle if you're writing nonfiction.
Thank you.
Very good. Any last questions? Bruce, and then we'll ask Russ. Bruce.
Thanks, Charlotte. Phillipa, is there anything special about publishing textbooks type things with lots of graphics and figures and those sorts of things, or do the platforms handle all of the figures and graphics as well as just plain text?
Bruce, when you publish with CreateSpace, just make sure you save your manuscript as a PDF, because that will preserve all your formatting. Where I've seen the diagrams and stuff get thrown out is if you are publishing on Kindle, that becomes a little bit more complicated, and then you have to do more specific formatting for that, because there it's taking a Word document and uploading it. And that's, I've seen actually a book that I published recently for a client on Kindle, everything got thrown out, her tables, her diagrams and everything. But if you're going print through it with textbooks, just make sure you upload to CreateSpace as a PDF, and everything stays the same. And that goes for actually giving your manuscript to a printer as well. Always give them your manuscript in PDF. Don't ever give it to them in Word, because it will not come out the way you expect it to.
I have to just add, right at the beginning of Richard Mulvey's writing career, he had to take his manuscript on a floppy disk to the printer and sit there and format it on their computer to get it to work. So thank goodness for PDF and advances. All right, Ross, last question from you, and then we're going to tie up. There you go.
Great. Am I unmuted there?
You're unmuted. You're perfect.
Perfect. Great. Well, coming from a PhD sort of scenario, I'm used to referencing everything. If I want to go to the toilet, I reference it. How does it work with a book? If you want to take some content from another author, how much do you take? Do you have to get permission? How does that work? If you could maybe give me, or how does one go about figuring out what you can use and what you can't use?
Okay, well, you can have snippets of a book that you refer to, and you just in Word especially. I've seen that you can use it. I haven't used it myself, but there's citations. So if you're going to quote a passage from a book, then make sure you have a little one at the end after the quotation marks, and probably at the bottom of your page, then you can say where you can cite the reference. And there's various forms of citation that you can use. Obviously, you don't want to take like 3 pages out of another author's work and publish it in your own book. But if you are referring to a book, you have to acknowledge it. If you don't acknowledge it, you can actually get into a lot of trouble. Even something that I realized, which I was quite shocked about, was if you use song words, song lyrics in your book, don't do that, because you can get into so much trouble if the producers find out that you actually use song words in your book, because you have to. You can't even get permission, or it's going to take you forever anyway. So just if you are going to cite other people's works, just reference it at the end. And there are specific ways of citing a reference, which you obviously know how to do. Comma. Yeah. Does that help?
Look, I've obviously got experience in that. I'm just wondering, you can go online and you can get a whole lot of information. Now, if I just send a link, you can go there by yourself. But what happens if I print some of that stuff?
I would go to wherever you found that content and get their permission first. if they allow you to publish their content in your book, then fantastic. But you're just going to have to acknowledge it.
Yep, that might be a longer technical conversation, but a very good question. Thank you, Ross.
It's not my area of expertise, but just from being in the book selling industry, that's what my experience has been.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Phillipa, that has been fascinating, and clearly this is a very deep conversation that we need to keep having. Every time we talk about this, there's more things that are uncovered, and I'm sure we all still have some questions percolating in our minds. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to share, just for a moment, I'm going to share my screen so that you can see Phillipa's details. If you want to go to her website. Are you seeing that? Sorry, my screen has disappeared. Are you seeing Phillipa's details? Okay, I'm seeing some few nods.
Yeah, maybe.
Good. All right. Okay. But if anybody's got any questions, come back and check with me, or go to Phillipa's website. It already is phillipamitchell.com, so that's nice and easy. Have a look at her website. Learn from what she shared with us so generously. And I encourage you to, write your books, get them out there, experiment. If it goes wrong, it's hopefully a short print run and you can fix it up. So it's not the kind of crises that we had in the past when we ended up, like with Richard, 2,000 copies of a hard copy book that is immediately out of date in the garage. But we can learn from that. Phillipa, thank you very much. It really has been very, very valuable. We've really appreciated it.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Good. When you write your books, message us, let us know. We'll brag about it on PSA's Facebook page, and if you're members, we'll put it onto the website and things like that. It's really good to share that. Really, really worthwhile. And yes, I hope to see some of you at a PSASA meeting sometime. Attendance at this particular online meeting it's not required to be a member. So if you see the adverts coming up for future meetings, please feel free to pass on the advert to other people and encourage them to attend. And if you've got any questions or any subjects that you'd like us to deal with on this online meeting, then let me know. It's Charlotte at Charlotte Kemp. So we'll see you next month sometime, but the advert will go out soon. Thank you all very, very much.